watching the Bulldog Brewhouse Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Steve Grover. We're back here for another episode of the Bulldog Brewhouse Podcast. It's right after Easter break. It's April 13th, so hopefully it's a good luck day rather than being a Friday the 13th. I've got a special guest here, a very well-known trial lawyer from the great state of Texas, from San Antonio. I got Michael Cowen here. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing, Steve?
Oh, good. We've got some good weather. We're up here in Calgary, Canada, near Banff. I know you've been to Banff, and our snow is always here, and I think it's cleared up today, so hopefully it'll be clear. But it's always, we always say it's a personal injury lawyer's Christmas when it snows up in Canada because there's accidents.
Yeah, I did my honeymoon in Banff, so it's always going to be a special place for me.
Yeah, and where did you stay up in Banff?
At when I went with my wife, we stayed at the Banff Springs every month.
Yeah.
And then I stayed at a place called the Fox, I believe.
Yeah, the Fox Hotel. I know exactly where they are. I usually take my daughter up once a month now. We do daddy-daughter weekend up in Banff. We'll stay at the Moose Hotel, which is one of the hotels on Banff Avenue. But I know who you are. I know you're pretty well known in the trial lawyers circle, especially trucking lawyers circle down in the U.S. I'm part of ATAA, which is a well-known group. It's been around for 15 years, formed by Joe Freed. Can you tell my viewers a little bit about Michael Cowen? Where are you from, and what do you do?
Sure. Well, I'm from the opposite part of the U.S. I'm from a little town called Brownsville, Texas, which is on the Mexican border as far south as you can get in the continental United States, right on the Rio Grande River. It's where I grew up, and that's where when I started plaintiff's work, at least, when I left big law and went to plaintiff's work, I moved back home and practiced there until about 11 years ago. I moved up to San Antonio, Texas, because I had more of a regional practice. So I started off just doing all kinds of different cases, tried a lot of like smaller car wreck cases. But over the years, I developed more and more of a specialty of doing truck cases and have built up a nice practice of just, truck and company vehicle cases around the country. And I've been blessed to try 125 of them, and hopefully I'll have to try many more before I'm done. Mm-hmm. And I just love what I do.
Okay, yeah, and I always go to the ATA convention. I've been a member since Joe Freed, and I think Mike Leserman founded it with Anthony Young. I know you're very active in that. You always give good presentations. I always make sure I go and see your presentation because you make it kind of very animated and interesting and tell your stories. But let's get back to the origins. You're from Brownsville, and what was like growing up in Brownsville in Texas?
Well, Brownsville's a very different place to grow up on the border, and I think a lot of it served me well. I did not grow up around a lot of lawyers. My dad had a used car lot, and my mom was a teacher. She eventually became a guidance counselor at some point when I was in high school. And I grew up, Brownsville's 90-something% Mexican American, so yeah. I grew up as a, kind of a minority in the community, which I think has served me well. I learned to speak Spanish. I think I also just learned to see things a little differently, just being a little bit of an outsider sometimes. Not always. I mean, I have lots of good friends, but culturally, even though we were there before it was Texas, because of the way I look, sometimes people would assume at first glance that I didn't fit in when maybe I did. Then, went to college at Texas A&M, had a good time there. I got the same full scholarship at University of Texas, and Texas A&M offered to me, but I liked the culture better at A&M and went there, and then went to Texas for law school.
Okay, and so obviously you liked A&M better than Texas to go to undergraduate. I've got a nice Johnny Manziel signed helmet by him. I remember 2012, he ripped it up pretty good in college football. I'm a big college football fan. First Heisman won by a freshman. And I know a lot about A&M. I've got family down in Houston. And were you in the band at all?
No, I'm just, I was not in anything but a fraternity. I had a lot of fun, but yeah. I'm a passionate Aggie fan as far as any sport, especially football.
Okay.
That's probably the only thing that comes close to my passion for trying cases is my passion for A&M football.
Okay, and what did you think of that Miami A&M game? I mean, that was a pretty good game down. It was windy. It was a low-scoring game. I watched it on TV up here in Canada.
Yeah, I was there. It was heartbreaking,
Yeah.
because we were in it till the very end, and then to lose on throwing an interception into the end zone is heartbreaking, especially since that had appeared to become a pattern with us towards the end of the season. But you know, I was hoping they'd win 9 games. They won 11. They
Yeah.
made the playoffs for the first time. We have an upward trajectory with Coach Elko, and I will actually be in College Station this weekend for a fundraiser on the board of a charity called Vaughn's Vision. It's Von Miller's charity. We
Oh
raise
yeah.
money to do free eye exams and designer glasses for kids.
Yeah.
And I'll be at the A&M spring game. We end our spring training with it's basically a glorified scrimmage, but we'll have
Yeah.
about 40 or 50,000 people there. And so I'll be there this weekend.
Okay, cool. And then you went on to Austin, University of Texas, and that's a very famous law school. The King of Torts went there, Joe Jamail. I know I've been to
Yeah.
the campus. I know Nathan, who's my videographer. We did a walk through the campus, and everything's Jamail this and Jamail that. And how was law school at U of T?
I enjoyed it. It was really suited for my temperament because you have one exam a semester and that was it.
Oh, okay.
So I could have a really good time in August, September, and really, really cram and buckle down in October, November, which kind of suits my personality. Is like I work really hard for trials, and then I want to have some fun, then I want to work hard again.
Yeah.
Jamal was funny. He had just made his first giant donation when I was a student there. He gave $11 million, and so he got to come to law school and give a speech when they named the law school library after him. And he says,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, I hope you take some of this money and build a bar in the library because you had a bar there. I would have gone there when I was in school."
Oh, okay.
Different attitude.
And what was his temperament like? Because I've seen a lot of YouTube ads, YouTube videos where it's kind of like in your face, kind of he's a big guy. Is he a very personal guy, or is he kind of rough and tough in trial?
I've just seen videos of him, and I've seen him speak as an audience member. I've never got the chance to actually have a conversation with him one on one, but he definitely had a different. It was a different era, and he definitely had a different style. That style doesn't work for me. I mean, jurors do not like me when I am in someone's face.
Yeah.
Jurors, and maybe it's because I'm a big 6'4" guy. I look like I can be a bully really easily. So I've had to develop a different style that works for me, but. You can't argue with success. It worked for him. I think you have to be yourself, and you can't pretend to be something you're not.
Okay, so you obviously go through 3 years of hell, which I call law school. Especially
I had fun in law school. So
well, like my experience, the first year as a 1L is very difficult. Everyone's scared. I mean, they always say, look to your left, look to your right, and half the class will be gone for the second 2L class. Second year was good, and then I found the third year is like I would rather do an internship because you're counting the days until you graduate, until you get to the bar exam. So generally, how was your law school experience? You said you enjoyed UT, the Austin area.
Yeah, I had 2 semesters when I pledged to fraternity, and the semester afterwards at undergrad where I had a 2.2 grade point average. And,
Okay.
The way I got cured of that is my parents cut me off financially and made me get a job, which made me more structured and disciplined and less time to go drink, and then my grades went up. But I barely got into the University of Texas Law School. I got a waitlist letter on a Friday, and then I got my admissions letter that next Monday. So I was the first person in off the waitlist. So I had no expectations of doing well, so I didn't have all the pressure everyone else did, and then I ended up doing incredibly well.
Okay.
The law just made sense to me.
Yeah.
So law school, after the first semester, it all just kind of like, to me, it's almost like computer programming. It's a bunch of if-then statements, and once I kind of got the logic of the law, then it was just a matter of reading the stuff and learning it. But no, I made really good friends. I had a really good time in law school.
Okay, so then you graduate 3 years of law school. I mean, obviously, you probably took the bar exam. You studied through Barbary, that prep school program?
Yeah, I took the New York bar exam
Okay.
first. I took the Barbary course, and then, because I had a job at a big law firm in New York City, I did a 1-year clerkship for a judge in Texas. He was on the Fifth Circuit, Ronaldo Garza, and so I took the Texas bar as a backup while I was there. And then went to big law in New York, worked there about a year, and then came back home to Texas.
Okay, what attracted to you in New York? Because you're from Texas. That's quite the difference of going from Brownsville. And Austin's a very liberal city, opposed to College Station, and then you go to the big town in New York City. What was the attraction?
I knew nothing about law firms. I had two uncles that were insurance defense lawyers, but I was not super close to them at that point because they had both told me not to go to law school.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you saw my study habits and some of my grades in undergrad, especially before I decided I wanted to go to law school and really like started buckling down, objectively, you couldn't argue with their advice. I mean, if you looked at me in the late 80s, 89, 90, you would say this guy going to law school is a bad idea. And luckily, I turned things around in my life.
Yeah.
But so I wasn't going to ask them for any advice because I was like, well, they told me not to go to law school. I'm not asking them.
Yeah.
So I knew nothing about law firms. So the only thing that I saw, it was, pre-internet. So at the career services, there was a hallway with the law firms that were coming to interview on campus. And there would be a piece of paper taped to the wall for every law firm interviewing. And the top firms in Texas said you had to be the top 25% of the class, and they started at $60,000 a year. And the Wall Street firms said you had to be the top 10% of your class, and they started at $83,000 a year. And that was the entire source of my decision making.
Okay.
This must be where I want to work because it's the hardest job to get.
Okay. And then you spent a year up in New York, and what turned you back to Texas after the 1 year?
Well, I met a girl.
Oh, okay. It's always a lady. There's always a lady.
Yes. I met a woman who's now my wife.
Okay.
But back then we started dating 6 weeks before I moved to New York City. She comes from a very traditional family. Her parents are first generation immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
She still lived with her parents in her mid-20s, was not going to go move up with some dude in New York City, and I was in love, and so I took a job for a lot less money back home.
Okay, where did that end up? Where did you end up going in Texas?
Back to Brownsville. I worked for
Okay.
a lawyer named Ed Stapleton. He was a local plaintiff's lawyer. I got offers from defense lawyers, but after talking to Ed, I decided my heart was really in the plaintiff's law. I had worked for a couple of plaintiff's lawyers during law school. I got the big, prestigious internships in the summer, but during the school year, to make a little extra money, I got jobs for a couple of plaintiff's lawyers, and I just really liked it better.
Okay. Well, and I've been a plaintiff lawyer ever since I came to law school, and my dad was a surgeon, and I just like the one-on-one talking to a real person rather than an institutional client. And I always teach my junior lawyers you're actually representing a real person, and that's the big attraction to me with personal injury. Is like I always say, it's personal to the client because they're injured and they're real people. And, obviously you probably take that perspective also.
Absolutely, and I got to get in the courtroom a lot quicker. I mean, there's so many, when I was in New York, I had everyone jealous of me. I once got to sit and take notes while someone else picked a jury, and then the case settled. But I met 8-year lawyers who'd yet to take a deposition, and they're in the litigation department. 11-year lawyers who'd never set foot in a courtroom during a trial.
Yeah.
Going to Ed had me trying. Let's say I started in April. I second chaired a trial for him in June. In July, he sat next to me when I tried a case and poked me in the ribs whenever I went off too far. Then August, I started trying cases on my own.
Okay. And then how long did you last in Brownsville for?
Let's see, from 1997 until 2015. Okay. And then by that time, I developed a real regional practice, and it was a pain to live in Brownsville when I had cases all over the state.
Okay. Was there a store? I remember, we were at your big rig boot camp in July of last year, and again, we're going to be a sponsor again. I think we're the refreshment sponsor, Grover Law Firm. Was there the story of how you got into plaintiff's work? You said you like representing people, and then your practice got too regional, and so you made the choice to move to San Antonio. And why, of all the cities, because there's Big D, Dallas, there's H-Town, Houston, and there's San Antonio. Why did you pick San Antonio of all the 3 big cities?
Most of my practice at that time, and still more than probably half of our practice, is what I call Hispanic South Texas, which is, from San Antonio to the Rio Grande River. And so I fit in there. I guess growing up in Brownsville, I speak Spanish. I have really good relationships. We can speak to the clients directly in their own language because there's a huge Spanish-speaking population in those communities.
Yeah.
So it was a really good regional for, we have a lot of cases in Laredo, Texas, Eagle Pass, Texas, still the Rio Grande Valley where Brownsville is. And then for our cases like in Houston and Dallas, there's at least direct flights and
Yeah.
not too bad of a commute from San Antonio to other places.
Okay. And then obviously you're just focusing on trucking cases, and that's how I met you through ATA. We're also, I don't know if you're still a member of CRISP, you know that.
I am.
Yeah, so I am. You know, they get their money every month from me.
Yeah, they
And
get a
so,
lot, I'm in Chris Beck's. They got a lot of money from me.
and sometimes I
But
wonder why I still with them. And then there's always problems that arise in the office, and now I understand why I still with them.
yeah, my partner's question, like, why are we spending all this money with Chris? But then I look at like, well, look how our law firm's changed. Not
Yeah.
only how much more money we're making, but what a better culture we have,
Yeah.
how much better things are run. So like, it's really expensive, but it's worth it.
Okay.
That's,
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, they're based out of Atlanta. But how did you end up going into trucking cases? Like, you know, you said you did some car wreck cases, because that's a
yeah.
big transition. You know, those are, you know, bigger cases and more logistics involved in them.
Yeah, I worked my way up to the ranks. So when I first started, I mean, my boss kind of quit on me after a couple of years, and I ended up being a solo way before I was ready. And so I did whatever I could. I mean, I did a lot of car wreck cases, mostly
Yeah.
like cases on referral that other people couldn't settle with minimum limits policies. They just, tried 10 to 16 cases a year for a few years, just getting in there and kind of did some, back when we had medical negligence in cases, did some medical negligence cases, some workplace injury cases. Then I think my first big break was getting into automotive product liability because that got me into cases with more catastrophic injury. But then two things happened. One, they fixed all the defects that I was suing over. I mean,
Yeah.
they made the roots stronger, cars weren't rolling over as much, seatbelts were coming unbuckled. And then I had developed just enough of a reputation in the industry where people would refer me really good trucking cases. And I didn't have to, I mean, honestly, if you're doing plaintiff's work and you can do all trucking cases, it's a great way to make a living. They're fun cases, they're lucrative cases, not as hard and expensive as the product liability or the medical negligence cases. So it's been just a really good way. Now we still do a few other, maybe 10% of our docket are other types of cases, but we're really selective on them.
Okay. And like you always hear the thing, a trucking case is not the same as an auto car wreck case. Can you explain that to my viewers? Because, you know, I struggle that even with my staff explaining that to them.
Absolutely. So a trucking case is very different than a car wreck case for a couple reasons. That the truck is different, that the trucking case involves a company, and that it's a regulated industry, and they're all three important. So let's start, I want to go into one at a time. So
Yeah.
trucks are very different than regular cars. They're up to 80,000 pounds. That's as much as 20 regular passenger vehicles. They're much longer. They're much taller. They have a different geometry. So, like if you hit the side of a trailer or the rear of a trailer, your crash energy management system, your bumper, your frame, they all slide right underneath the trailer. So people get killed in crashes that if it was a car to car, the bumpers would hit and they'd walk away. The truck drivers are driving many, many hours. They're harder. Their vehicles are harder to maneuver. They're tired. They're being pushed to drive more. And so because trucks are different, there's different rules. And that's where the regulated industry comes in. You have all these authoritative sources of rules, both, actual regulations, but then governmental publications like commercial driver's license manuals, preventable accident manuals, that provide a bunch of sources of rules for not just what the trucking driver should do, but the trucking company should do. And then you have the fact that there's a company involved. So you have a whole other set of obligations rather than just what a driver's obligations are. You have the obligation to make sure that the driver is properly vetted. And you do a background check, that the driver is properly trained, that the driver is properly supervised, that you do drug and alcohol testing. You have all those other rules to provide other opportunities to basically get a jury mad enough to allow full justice in your case.
Okay, so if there's a young lawyer out there in, say, like North Carolina or in Nova Scotia, Canada, that's looking into getting trucking cases and is a litigator, what's your number one or two best advices you could give a young litigator about getting involved in trucking cases?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, do it, learn.
Yeah.
If you don't have someone in your firm that's an experienced trucking lawyer and you get a trucking case, team up with somebody.
Yeah.
You can find a lawyer to split the fee with you. You'll still get, if you get the right lawyer, they'll still let you be involved in the case. And we do that all the time. We have lawyers that, at first they bring us in almost all their trucking cases because they're still learning.
Yeah.
And then, as our relationship develops, they learn more. They handle more and more of them on their own. But then they bring us in on the very biggest ones that are super expensive and complicated. And we just have these sometimes multi-decade relationships. We have people we've been working with since the 90s. So that's number one, is to find someone to work with, and two is to educate yourself. I mean, I'm kind of proud of my book, Big Rig Justice. Go through trial guides. Took me 5 years to write it. I tried to go into great detail of how to handle all sorts of trucking cases, and then join the different trucking organizations. I mean, Academy of Truck Accident Attorneys. We have our symposium every year. The next one's in Denver in September. And it's 3 days of education on how to do trucking cases. AHA, American Association for Justice, also has a really good trucking litigation group, and that's how I learned. I mean, I joined the groups, I went to the seminars, I read the books, and then I applied it and just worked cases and got better, and you learn as you go.
Okay, yeah, and you touched on it a little bit. I have a copy of your book, Big Rig Justice. I've read it, and there's actually a chapter in there that made us a lot of money at mediation last year in a big trucking case. So I got to thank you for that, okay? We had to actually educate the adjuster and the defense lawyer in Edmonton, and they really understood what our theory was. And so thank you for that chapter. I'll let you know in Denver when I see what chapter it was, okay?
Oh, that makes me feel so good. I mean, I love that people, I spent 5 years on that darn thing, and so I love to hear that it actually made a difference in someone's life.
So what was the start of you're educating yourself, you're starting with car wreck cases, you're getting into trucking cases. You probably were an early member of ATA like I was in 2010 or so, like that, or it's been a long time since I've been a member. What was the inspiration for you to write a book?
I've been wanting to write one for a long time. Part of it is I like to share what I know. Part of it, frankly, is I was trying to, get my name out there, and what better way is there to write a book. And the first time I asked trial guides, they said, "Who are you?" And we already have somebody under contract, and that first person didn't write the book. Never finished the book, and they eventually lost the contract. Then I went again a few years later and said, "Well, we've kind of heard of you, but we've already given the contract to someone else." And then that person who had a partner on the deal, they didn't finish the book either. So by the time the third time I went and talked to them, I already had my podcast. I had a much bigger name. I was more speaking all around the country. And then they said, "Well, I'd love to have you write a book." And then I thought it was going to be 18 months, turned into 5 years, but I at least finished it.
Okay. And it took you 5 years. And just in the big symposium of what the book's all about, it takes the basics of running a trucking case and the stuff you need to look at and how to get ready for depositions and trial and all that stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of 3 parts. One is kind of about my theory of how you work up and try a case in general, and what you're looking for and trying to do, and then the trucking industry in general, and kind of big themes in the trucking industry like driver qualification, training, fatigue management. And then the third part is just like very specific types of cases, what you need to do if you have a rear end collision, a wide right turn, just every type of case I can think of. And then just showing real world examples of how you make your case. Okay. I really want it to be something helpful, not just like Michael Cowen knows what he's doing, but I can make this book and do good for my client without ever having talked to Michael.
Well, it was great for our office. I mean, we prepared for the mediation. I read the chapter about a week before, and it really dawned on me, and we took that theory and applied it. So thank you for writing the book. Obviously, my clients were very satisfied with the victory, what we did. And so I think it's more important to serve the clients. So thank you for helping us, bring justice to our clients. Okay.
I'd love to hear it.
So and then obviously getting into another area that everyone's talking about now, and I know the trucking industry may be going to this, AI trucks. What do you think of that theory that's going to evolve?
Well, I mean, honestly, I have a son who's a junior in college now. He says he wants to go to law school and come work in the firm, which I am encouraging him to do, but I'm also telling him, by the time you're my age, 30-something years from now, don't count on there being very many trucking cases anymore. I mean, the fact is, not tomorrow. I mean, technology has a long way to go, and then it would take a long time to get all the existing trucks off the road and the newer ones on the road. But technology is going to put us out of business. I mean, the trucks are going to get safe enough eventually, either through full automation or just features like automatic emergency braking, lane departure warnings, things like that are already here, but they're not perfect yet. And they're really going to reduce the number of truck wreck cases to where there just won't be enough of them out there for a firm to specialize in it. And I look forward to that day. I mean, I love what I do, but I would much rather fewer people get killed.
Yeah.
Me find something. I mean, there'll always be something to litigate. I can always find something else to do. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that day, but it is a fact that sooner or later, but I think a lot later than people think. I think it's going to be probably 15, 20 years before the numbers really start.
Okay. And this is one thing I tell clients and even the general public up here in Canada. We're up in the Great West White North, and there's trucks everywhere. I don't know if you've been to Banff, but I'm licensed up in the Yukon. I mean, the Alaska Highway going to Alaska. We're up in Northwest Territories. We've got an office up in Yellowknife, ice road truckers. We do some cases in the Maritimes, a lot of trucking. But like a lot of people say, you're suing truckers, and and I say they are the lifeline of our economy. If it wasn't for the truckers, we wouldn't get the gas or the fruit or the food we enjoy. But we're looking out for the public against the bad trucking companies and the bad truckers. Would you agree with that theory?
Yeah, and really, the more I've dug into this, and I've represented a lot of truck drivers too that get hurt by other truck drivers, the more I feel for the truck drivers. I mean, most of them are good people trying to work and make a living, but they are put into impossible situations by companies that just treat them like dirt. There's so little respect. I mean, they're paid by the mile, and so imagine this. I mean, you show up to a place where you're going to get loaded or unloaded. Now you're getting paid by the mile. Your 14-hour window when you're allowed to work has already started. So you're there. Your clock's ticking away. Now sometimes it's on average between 5 and 7 hours that you're going to be sitting there, not getting paid that whole time.
Yeah.
You're respected so little that they don't even let you use the bathroom. All these places. Well, the truck drivers will get it dirty. So you're like you're sitting there bored, not getting paid, having to pee into a jug that you have to find some place to throw away later.
Yeah.
And now you're left with not enough hours left in your legal working day to make enough money to pay your bills. And so you're left with this choice. Do I starve? Do I get my lights turned off at home and the family I'm trying to support? Or do I cheat and work more hours and do something unsafe? And these companies, by the way they treat them, just put them in these impossible situations. And so I think what we do actually is hopefully going to improve the lives of truckers, because when we have a financial consequence of how bad they treat them, my prayer is they start treating the truck drivers better, and so that they have more pleasant lives and fewer crashes.
So is there a certain area, like is there 3 root causes of trucking accidents that happen across, the freeways in America? Because it's such a big country. I know it's not as big as Canada, but unfortunately probably 80 to 90% of Canada is uninhabitable because of the snow and ice.
We have, I would say the main root causes, I think number one is lack of training. Drivers just don't know the safety rules they're supposed to know.
Yeah.
The second, I would say, is fatigue, drivers being tired and kind of being zoned out. And the third is distraction. They're bored and they want to talk on the phone. I think drugs and alcohol is probably, and then maybe maintenance issues would be after that. But really and truly, fatigue, distraction, and just not knowing what to do are the 3 biggest things I see in my practice.
Okay, and obviously in the U.S. they have the federal rules of regulation. I mean, that's the little green book I see all the time when I cross the 49th parallel. But do each state have their own regulations on trucking based on the federal rules?
Yes, so for interstate commerce, the federal rules apply. For intrastate commerce, I think every state, if not almost every state, has adopted most, but usually not all of the federal regulations. So you have to look state by state to see what federal regulations has that state adopted, and then has that state done anything to change or to add their own regulations.
Okay, and I'm familiar with the Commerce Clause as part, regulating business in the U.S. So for my Canadian viewers, so if a trucker is going from like Fayetteville, Arkansas to Dallas, Texas, the federal rules apply on that?
Yes. Are the truckers going from Dallas, Texas to Houston, Texas, but the load is the goods being carried start off outside the state, even if the load is purely an intrastate load, if it's part of interstate commerce.
Okay, and then if it's originally if it's going from Dallas to somewhere out west, Midland, Texas, and it's all
Right.
origin in Texas, would the state rules of Texas apply?
Yes.
And just as example, using Texas as an example of federal rules, how much does the Texas rules of regulation of trucking differ from the federal rules, or are they just mirrored?
Well, Texas has adopted about 90% of them, but sometimes they're a little bit more permissive. For example, the federal rules allow a 14-hour driving window during which you can drive up to 11 hours. The Texas rules for interstate allow a 15-hour driving window during which you can drive up to 12 hours.
Okay, all right.
The federal rules have what's called the statutory employer doctrine, where if it's whoever the motor carrier is, whether they classify the driver as an independent contractor or not, the motor carrier is vicariously liable. Texas does not have that in state. So there's some significant differences, but for a lot of the requirements, like the background checks, the training, they're word for word the same.
Okay, and a lot of people, like even myself as a young, guy growing up and going to the U.S., I went to school in the U.S., a lot of people don't understand, you cut in front of a trucker, they're not very happy about that because they need extra time to slow down opposed to a car. Do people understand,
Absolutely.
like, the differences between driving and cutting in front of a trucker opposed to just a minivan or something like that?
Yeah, so a tractor trailer needs much more following distance because they take a lot longer to stop.
Okay.
They have a different kind of brake called an air brake that has a little bit of lag time between the time you hit the brake pedal and the time the brakes activate. And then they're just much bigger and heavier.
Yeah.
So they longer stopping distance. So yeah, it's good to give trucks some space.
Okay. And obviously, I know in the U.S., and I know there's the idea of punitive damages. They're not very popular in Canada. I don't know if you know that. But what's punitive damages all about? And, how does that come a big issue in a trucking case?
Well, it's state by state. But most states in the U.S. that allow punitive damages, and that's like in addition to what it takes to compensate someone, in certain fairly rare cases, a jury can assess an additional amount to set an example or to punish wrongdoing. And so you pretty much have to show conscious knowledge and reckless indifference. So you have to show that the company, and not just a driver in most states, depending on the state, Texas, New Mexico, where I practice mostly, that the company knew something was dangerous and they chose to do it anyway.
Okay.
And so they know it's dangerous to have drivers drive without training. They chose not to train them anyway. They knew that this driver had a really bad driving record, but they chose to put him on the wheel, behind the wheel anyway, which is different than like regular negligence, just an omission. This is actual like a conscious choice.
And so have you recovered punitives on judgments on trucking cases in the U.S.?
In Texas, the standard is so high to keep them that we usually don't end up submitting them. We want to keep them, we defeat summary judgment. We want to be able to get certain evidence in, but we often don't submit them. So, and then the tax consequences are horrible for the client on punitive damages. They're taxable, and the client does not get to deduct what they pay you for attorney's fees or expenses. So the entire amount, and there have been cases with punitive damages where the client owed more in taxes than they recovered after expenses. Okay. So we're really careful with that. I know other people in other states, the law's a little different on the recoverability, but Texas, the Supreme Court takes them all away anyway.
And I was reading recently about is there a Bill 15 in Texas where they're trying to bifurcate liability from damages, so the jury
they bifurcate company liability.
Yeah.
So H Bill 19 passed a couple of years ago. There's a bunch of exceptions to it, but and it's something to try to spread more places where they try to hide the trucking company's bad conduct from the juror.
Okay. And has that been successful in lessening punitive awards against trucking companies?
Well, it doesn't have anything to do with the punitive part. What it does, it's intended to lessen the compensatory awards because all the conduct would come in the second phase, which would be the punitive phase of the trial. So the idea is, let's say they're doing comparative fault. Your driver has some fault, their driver has some fault, and the company didn't train the driver, and the company and the driver had a bad background. Well, they want to hide the company's fault when the jury is allocating what percentage comes to the plaintiff, what percentage goes to the defendant. They want to hide the company's fault knowledge when they're deciding how much is the pain and suffering worth, how much is the impairment worth, and only bring it in for purposes of punitive damages. But there's a ton of exceptions, and we've been pretty successful in establishing the exceptions in our cases.
Okay. And now you have an office in San Antonio, and I know you mentioned in passing right now, and I know you have an office in Albuquerque, New Mexico?
Albuquerque and Santa Fe, and a different firm. That firm's Begum and Cowen. I've got a partner in that firm.
Okay, and of all the states you could have had another office in, or been part of, why did you pick New Mexico? I've been there several times.
Uh, Great law,
Yeah.
neighboring state, so it's a little easier to get to. And one of my big referral partners that I'd worked with for, over 20 years had been wanting me to open an office with him for a long time. And frankly, I didn't have the money for a long time to do it because it was an incredible investment up
Yeah.
front to do it. And one day he asked me again, because I was licensed in that state. I'd been practicing doing cases there from attorney referrals. And I said, well, if this case you referred to me settles for more than X million dollars, I'll have the money, I'll go ahead and do it. And then it settled for more than that. I said, okay, well, let's do it then.
Okay, all right. And then obviously, I've heard the same story growing up. Like I grew up, my dad knew a lot of lawyers, and there's a couple of lawyers in our area. And I remember doing walks with my dad in the evening, and they would, we'd meet a next door neighbor, and he was like a, lawyer at a big shot law firm here in Calgary, big oil and gas, and they say, Steve, you shouldn't become a lawyer. And I heard the same story, from your family members. If there's a young person out there, would you encourage him or her to become a lawyer, and why?
If you want to be a lawyer because you think you would enjoy it or you
Yeah.
feel a passion for it, I absolutely encourage it. It can be a wonderful way to make a living.
Yeah.
I have found great joy in the practice of law. It is work.
Yeah.
There is stress,
Yeah.
but I love it. And so if you're doing it because you love it, if you're doing it because someone's pressuring you to, or you think it's an easy way to make money, you will be miserable. And we have incredible rates of alcoholism, drug abuse, suicide, all kinds of other bad behaviors. And I really think you just have to figure out who you are, and then. But yeah, if it's something that you feel a passion for, go for it. And if you don't like it, you always quit and do something else. I mean.
Okay. Yeah, you could always become an actor, or you could be Prime Minister of Canada.
Yeah, Katy Perry. I mean.
Exactly. So you talked about you love law, you love practicing law. What is the thing that you love about law? Is it running a practice, running jury trials, taking care of the clients? What's the one thing that you enjoy? That okay, I had a bad day, but I go home and relax and like, okay, this is a passion I love.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I love the trial. I love the trial work. I love the strategies. It's like a puzzle. You get a bunch of facts, you get a bunch of documents, and you find the good story about what someone did wrong.
Yeah.
And I love helping people. I mean, so I really, really love putting the trial stories together and trying the cases, and I love helping my clients. They're good people.
And the one thing I've found I've been a lawyer for 26 years now. It's amazing how the time passes. Hopefully I'll hit 50 years, I don't know. But, the one thing I've found, and I keep on telling my associates, sometimes common sense is the biggest solution to a problem case. Would you agree with that idea?
Absolutely. I mean, the fact is, we have the curse of knowledge, and because we learn so much about all the intricate details and regulations, we can really overcomplicate cases. And a simple solution, going in with a beginner's mind and finding the simplest solution, is often the best solution.
But I find as a lawyer, and like my dad was a surgeon, and he had 4,000 books like of surgery in his den,
Oh, wow.
like he was just like he just loved surgery. He had a lot of postgraduate degrees, but it came down to like him just doing an appendix, very common, rudimentary. He'd be in and out in half an hour. But the biggest problem I find with junior lawyers, or even lawyers at my age, they still think it's very technical. They get lost in the forest. They don't look, they don't see the big picture, or they don't see the small problem. Do you see that in Texas too, or?
Oh, I see it all the time, and I'll be honest with you. I've had that problem before earlier in my career. I would really overcomplicate cases.
Yeah.
And so I have a saying I tell my lawyers, like, a plaintiff can only win a simple case.
Yeah.
Like, every case is a simple case if you work hard enough and think about it enough. You just have to simplify it and but you kind of have to go through the complexity to get to simplicity.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to go through that argument, and that lets you diffuse, all the things the other side's going to do to try to confuse the situation. But once you get through it, I mean, every case should be a simple yes, no, on, off switch. This is the rule, did they follow it or not?
Okay. And then obviously, down in Texas, and I know in the U.S., you have jury trials. Very different than the Canadian system. I don't know if you know, in Alberta, we don't have jury trials. We have bench-only trials. We don't have the constitutional right to have a civil jury. tell my viewers of like what's the complexities and what's the benefit of having a civil jury down in the U.S.
Yeah, I just feel like the jurors are, depending on the judge, there's a lot of, we elect our judges, there's a lot of politics in state court,
Yeah.
And their political appointees in federal court, and so there's a lot of politics. A lot of judges are jaded. I mean, they see, horrible crimes, they see all kinds of things, so I think when you hear case after case after case, you're just not as moved as you are the first time you hear a set of facts. And so, I just really like our system. We get 12 ordinary people that don't have a tie to one side or the other, don't have any real bias, and they listen to it and do what they think is right. And I think 99% of the time they get it right. So I really love the system. I mean, the hardest part for me was learning to truly trust the jurors.
Yeah.
And not be, it made me a lot less stiff and tense in the courtroom when I learned to really trust them. And then they start rewarding that trust.
Okay. And then obviously, we've participated. We've been a sponsor. It's coming up. I believe it's in July, the Big Rig Boot Camp.
Yeah.
And that's in San Antonio again. And what day is that going to be?
I believe it's a Thursday in July. I believe it's July 9th, but let me triple check my calendar because I always get it wrong.
Well, lawyers
it's the Thursday after the 4th of July. Yeah, it's July 9th.
Mm-hmm.
Register at bigrigbootcamp.com. It's super cheap.
Yeah.
We want to somewhat cover the cost of it. I mean, we still run a little bit of a deficit, but we're not doing it to make a profit. Mm-hmm. And we used to do it for free, but when we did it for free, it would sell out, and then 30% of the people wouldn't show up, and we'd have all these empty seats, and then other people not getting to go. We found that if you charge $250, which is for CLE is cheap.
Yeah.
People actually, when they pay for it, they actually show up.
Okay, and it's in San Antonio, and I believe it's out at the Boeing Center.
Yeah, it's a really neat. They have concerts there and big comedy shows, and then it's a really cool venue. Mm-hmm. We have a nice party the night before. We rented out the rooftop at one of the downtown hotels.
Yeah.
We just put on 6 hours of really actionable CLE. In fact, I've been working today on some of my presentations, so that's it takes many months of work to get ready for this 6 hours of quality CLE. We're going to do a lot more how-to this year. We're going to do talk about the theory of how to do things and then give demonstrations of how to do it. So we're going to do live demonstrations of a cross-examination of a truck driver, cross-examination of trucking company personnel like the management, and then the direct examination of a treating physician.
Okay.
And we're a real doctor to come up and help us with that too. We got a pain management doctor. We're going to really go into facet injuries, which is something that's I've learned a lot about the last few years.
Okay, and obviously Grover Law Firm will be present. We signed up to be a break sponsor, and hopefully you'll put us in the morning where people are still awake.
Yeah, I've been pretty happy. I keep people awake. We just have compelling enough content that people stay the whole time. We have very little drop off. I think ending with a happy hour helps keep people too.
Okay, and obviously, I live in Canada. I do love Mexican food. San Antonio, it's beautiful. It's got the Riverwalk. When I was there last year, I've driven through San Antonio back in the 90s, but I never spent a day there. And I found Riverwalk was very interesting. I found it a very kind of rustic, older city than Dallas or Houston. Would you agree with that, San Antonio?
Oh, absolutely. It depends on what part of town you go to. One thing I like about San Antonio, so the Riverwalk area is definitely more older. It's more touristy.
Yeah.
I like. I don't go down there that much anymore. I used to when I'd come up and visit from Brownsville. Yeah. But what I love about San Antonio, depending on where you want to go, I can go to parts of San Antonio and I feel like I'm back home on the Mexican border. I can go to parts of San Antonio and I feel like I'm in Dallas or Houston or Austin, like another bigger city where they have nicer things. So it just depends on a lot of little mini parts of town.
Okay.
I would highly recommend, if you love Mexican food, send me an email, michael@cowenlaw.com. I will tell you where to go, and you will get much better Mexican food off the Riverwalk. I promise you.
All right. Well, I'll send you.
My family actually immigrated to Mexico before it became Texas, and I have a passion for good Mexican food.
Okay. Well, I definitely want to find a really good Mexican restaurant, so I'll email you, and then you can let me know when we're down there. We'll probably arrive the day before, come to the party the night before, and then stay and leave out Friday, and then that Saturday, I don't know if you ever heard of the Calgary Stampede, the biggest outdoor show in the world. Yeah, we've got a big Stampede party on July 11th. So if you ever head up to Canada during July, we've got a big Stampede party. our firm puts on the last Saturday at the Stampede. So you and your family are welcome if you ever come up here again. Okay.
Oh, that would be so fun. I got to figure. I've been talking to my wife actually. We need this summer is already booked, but we
Yeah.
definitely need to get back.
Yeah.
We haven't been for years since before our second son was born.
Oh, okay. So are you getting into sports now? I know you went to A&M. I know you went to UT Texas. Are you a Spurs fan?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
who would you? Go ahead.
And I am a Texas Longhorn hater. So,
Oh, okay.
even though I have a law degree there.
So who's a better basketball player in the Spurs history, Tim Duncan or the Admiral? If you had to take one of the two to build the Spurs around, or Parker,
they're both
or
incredible.
would you?
I mean, the numbers don't lie. I think you'd have to go with Duncan.
Duncan. Okay.
How many championships?
Yeah. Okay. And then obviously there's always the talk all the time because I know the Cowboys are in Dallas, and Houston got a football team after the Oilers bowled it to Nashville. Will San Antonio ever get an NFL team?
I don't think so. My understanding is the Jerry Jones is very against the San Antonio being allowed a team. We tried to get the Raiders. It didn't happen.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have any inside knowledge, but the scuttlebutt is it's never going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Because Cowboys are huge in the Mexican-American population, huge Mexican population in San Antonio. He doesn't want to lose that fan base, eh?
In Brownsville, where I'm from,
Yeah.
in southmost area, which is mainly first and second generation immigrant, Spanish speaking part of town, there is a parade of people just driving down the southmost road, hundreds of vehicles, flags flying every time the Cowboys win to celebrate Cowboy wins.
So I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Do you watch the NFL?
Not as much. I work
Okay.
quite a bit, so I'm passionate about A&M football. If I watch it, I typically watch it to see an Aggie player play. So I like to watch Von Miller.
Yeah.
When John playing, I have certain players that I like, especially if I've got to know the player some. I grew up as a Cowboys fan, so I still kind of root for the Cowboys, but I don't follow the NFL closely.
Well, unfortunately, I'm a Cowboys fan too, and they haven't done anything since '96. And I don't think Jerry Jones really cares. But obviously, you went to A&M. You're obviously you favor the Aggies over the Horns.
Absolutely.
And we all see it on TV up here in Canada, Kyle Field. What's the experience of going to an Aggie football game on a fall weekend in College Station?
100 and something thousand people yelling as loud as they can in unison. It is beautiful. We sing songs together. We do yells together. We sway back and forth to one of the songs. It is, and we're fairly friendly. I mean, we are known for being a very hospitable fan base, very polite to people that are coming in from other teams. I think the only exception was baseball.
Yeah.
Because when A&M went to the College World Series 2 years ago, they were playing for the championship, and our coach at the time, Jim Sassonego, had already, not without telling us, had already accepted the job to be the head coach for the University of Texas, and left us as soon as we lost the championship game. Mm-hmm. And that sense of betrayal that somebody would take us all the way to the championship, and so they played last weekend. They played baseball, and there was a lot of hostility and boos and things that we normally don't do, but probably deserved.
And so, what's your prediction coming up this season of how the Aggies are going to do? Are they going to make college football playoff again?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I have given up on predicting because I've had my heart broken so many times, and I was pleasantly surprised last year. I believe the program's headed in the right direction. I think Coach Elko is a great coach. He's building a really good program. But it is so competitive in the SEC, and everyone else is doing so well. So, I would say more likely than not, I'd say winning 9 to 10 games, which is 10 gets us in the playoff, 9 may or may not.
Okay, and I've heard of Aggie football and the Kyle Field and all facilities you've had there, like the weight room and the recruiting and all that stuff, and you've had Johnny football there. What has been the big, and you're so close to Houston, which is such a hub for football in the state of Texas. What has been that one thing that's held A&M back from winning a national championship in the modern era?
That's a great question.
Yeah, okay.
This is 1939. I wish I knew. I mean, for a long time, I think we kind of had played by different rules. In the University of Texas, they got away with things that put us on probation.
Yeah. Okay.
Got us in trouble. Now with NIL, that's really leveled the playing field.
Yeah.
Some were able to do what used to be cheating and get away with it when the other people could get away with it, we couldn't. I think it was last season. It was quarterback play. I'm hoping Marcel Reed takes that next step over the off season. Throwing interceptions in the end zone is not a way to win championships.
Yeah.
But he's a good kid, great heart. He got us, but he had 11 incredible games. So
Yeah.
and I was there in South Bend, Indiana, for the first game when we played second game when we beat Notre Dame, and he was heroic in that game. And I've seen him. I was in Missouri when he took over. I am a super fan. I go to away games. I go to as much as I can. And so, I think last year it was quarterback play, and especially turnovers in the end zone, and then lack of turnovers. Our defense only took 3 turnovers all year, only one of which was or 3 interceptions all year, only one of which was by defensive back. Mm-hmm. And so I think if we could take a step up on quarterback play, if we can get an offensive line rebuilt, because we lost 4 people that are hopefully going to the NFL, but 4 people left to enter the draft, and we got a bunch of transfers, so hopefully we can do that. And then just get a little bit better on defense where we get more turnovers. I think we've got a good shot. All
right. Well, one day I'll have to come down to College Station. I've been to Longhorns game. I've been down to the Cougars, U of H, down there. So one day maybe I'll get down to College Station. I'll see you at a game down in Kyle Field.
Let me know. I just part of I didn't even ask for it, but we already had 4 season tickets.
Yeah.
And my youngest son doesn't like football, so I'm usually looking for people to go with. And as part of my official partnership package, they're giving me another 4 season tickets. So I've got lots of tickets. If you ever want to come to a game, I'd love to host you. Okay. So obviously your firm is a sponsor of A&M. Yeah, we just signed the contract. It's not effective until July 1st of this year, 2026. But I just signed the contract last week. So you'd be doing some videos with some Aggie football players and basketball players, or? I hope so. I get to use their official marks for advertising. I get my name displayed during sporting events. They're going to do some social media campaigns for me. I'm going to have things appearing on their website. And then the next step is and I negotiated being able to film content on Kyle Field. Oh, okay. During the game. Yeah. The next thing is to find some athletes to partner with for NIL interviews and try to get some of that on social media. All right. Well, thank you for the wealth of knowledge. I congratulate you on everything you've done. It's always been a pleasure watching you at ATA conferences. I saw you last year at the Big Root Boot Camp. We had a booth there. We'll be back there in July and look forward to seeing you in July and enjoying that nice Texas heat in the middle of July. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate all your support. Thank you, and you know what? If you need to learn about trucking accidents, get a copy of Michael Cowen's Big Rig Justice book. And if you want to learn a lot of practical stuff, go to his boot camp in July. Grover Law Firm will be there as the refreshment sponsor, and look forward to seeing everyone in San Antonio. And I wish you all the luck for the rest of the time until I see you in July. Okay, Mike? Thank you. Take care. All right. Thank you. And everybody, that's another episode of the Bulldog Brewhouse Podcast. It was a pleasure having Michael Cowen on here. And until next time, see you again. Take care. Bye-bye.
The Bulldog Brewhouse Podcast.